coming back to sort of what I shared before, like one of the biggest problems that a lot of people struggle with building their personal brand, it isn't resources, it isn't tactics, it isn't they don't know how to use a video camera, it's the vulnerability, it's the getting off, like having to share things that they never shared with people before.
Allan has started and grown several multi-million-dollar businesses. His mission is to help you do the same. Welcome to the Business Growth Pod, building the future one entrepreneur at a time.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Business Growth Pod. I'm Allan Draper. I'm your host. I'm excited for our episode today. Something that I've been working on, something that I struggle with, something that's really important to me in what I'm trying to achieve right now, and that's building a personal brand. I'd like to welcome Jay Jaye. He's the founder and CEO of Ace of Spades, which is a digital PR agency that works with personal brands to help them get seen and become number one in their space. He has all sorts of amazing credentials, and we're going to get into some of that today. Welcome to the show, Jay. How you doing?
Yeah, what's up, what's going on, man? What's happening? I always like when I do podcasts to see what's happening behind people.
For sure.
Like to see, like, okay, he's got some hats, he's got Olivia pops out here, got some shoes there. Okay. Maybe Zoom's is getting better. Zoom's get really upping their game these days.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think it says a lot about people. This is actually my home office, but yeah, like you just looking at that, you can, I have a daughter named Olivia. I collect shoes, big into sports, stuff like that. Back there are a lot of business books. I think one thing that has helped me more than anything is reading. I'm always looking for mentors. I'm looking for people that have kind of seen around the corner in the direction that I'm headed. And I feel like you have some of that experience. I'm in this spot, Jay, where I'm trying to build my personal brand. And in full disclosure, what I'm looking for is I currently own 27 businesses. Mm-hmm. I've started 25-ish of them. Some of them I'm silent partner, silent investor in. But I'm looking for people to come to me and say, hey, okay, Allan has this proven track record of starting businesses and becoming successful financially and helping build this track record of success and helping especially with startups. And I think ultimately it's because I'm an angel investor and I'm looking for other companies to invest in. So, but the personal brand thing has tossed me. It really has. And I've paid for PR. I've done a lot of PR work. It's a lot of work, man. Would you agree with that? Like developing a personal brand is a lot of work.
Well, yeah, you're building a brand. The brand is you. So when it's you, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be transparent. You have to be authentic. You have to make people like you. You have to do things that maybe you aren't naturally comfortable doing. People looking at you left, right, and center. And it's not like taking a water bottle and this is the brand and you can change the color of it. You can change the design of it. You can change the taste of it. You're selling the benefits of it. You're selling how people will use it. But when this is away and now you've got this, there's so many different elements to like being a person because people can relate with this. They can't relate to this. They understand it. They know what it is, but they know they know this. They know what a heart is. So personal branding is tough, I think, because a lot of people forget about some big things about personal branding. I think a lot of people they have an idea of what a personal brand should be, and they get scared about doing it because they're like, I don't want to be like that person. I don't want to be Gary Vee. I don't want to be Kim Kardashian or that larger than life personality. But I think it comes down to, man, what is the end goal of wanting to grow the personal brand? I say this to people all the time. People come to me like, I want to do this. I want to get featured in Forbes. I want to like speak on stages. And then once you find the why behind the motivation, then it becomes easier to figure that out. So I would probably say to you, like, why do you want to grow a personal?
Yeah. And I think to answer that, I think there's a few reasons for that. One, I do want to spread my influence and I want to help startup entrepreneurs. I understand how difficult that process is. And I had a lot of key people in my life that helped me. And I kind of want to pass that along. Two, as I mentioned before, I'm an angel investor. So I'm looking for startups. And so I kind of want to be the person that people go to super early. I have a very high risk tolerance. So I'm looking for companies a lot of times that aren't proven. I think the third aspect would be I'm on this journey to learn. And this concept of personal brand, I think it's so interesting. And I love the very first thing you said is, yeah, it's developing a brand. That really hit me, man, because I've developed brands and it's hard. It is a lot of work and it's a lot of consistency. And it's funny because, as dumb as this may sound, I've never thought about that in terms of building a personal brand. I thought of it more like just coming to the scene and all of a sudden you get this exposure, and that's just not the case.
Well, yeah, but you keep seeing it's funny, like, and I appreciate the transparency. You say the word, it's the same word.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're wondering why it's different. It's the same thing. And the way I always look at life, this is just being a traveler. I'm always very hard. I'm always the hardest on myself, right? I'm always playing devil's advocate. Okay, why is it hard? Like, why do people struggle with growing their personal brand? Like, what is the thing that's stopping people? And a lot of the times, man, it's hard because, once again, there are so many elements of us that we have to reveal and that we have to share. And once again, this does not talk. This does not communicate. This is a very three-dimensional, it's like, it's an object, right? But as a human, we have emotions, we have feelings, we have eye contact, we have tonality, we have human to human connection. Like, this does not feel. This is just an object. So I think people forget that with this personal brand, it's like, it is a whole showcase of everything. And I think a lot of people forget that when they are trying to build it, it is more than just, oh, let's just like get on podcasts or like make some content. You're forgetting a huge element. It's everything.
I think there's this interesting concept, and it's something that I struggle with. So I'm not an old guy, but I'm not super young either. I'm in my low 40s.
Right.
And so I didn't grow up with social media.
Right.
And Jay, I really struggle with this idea of, and you kind of touched on it a couple of minutes ago, of in this process of building a personal brand, becoming, right? So it's not just, it's a type of marketing. So it's not just about the product, right? I have a proven track record of successful businesses. That's not enough.
Yeah.
I struggle with, and I have a content creator full-time, and he helps coach me and bring out things in me that I'm really hesitant to either talk about or address or whatever, because I don't want to come across as fake.
Right.
How does somebody get beyond, and I think I'm getting there, but how does somebody kind of mix the two sides of putting something out there that's desirable for people to consume,
yeah,
but coming from a place of authenticity and realness, not just this facade?
Yeah, good question. So people, one of the biggest, coming back to sort of what I shared before, like one of the biggest problems that a lot of people struggle with building their personal brand, it isn't resources, it isn't tactics, it isn't, they don't know how to use a video camera. It's the vulnerability. It's the getting off, like having to share things that they never shared with people before, because we want to have this image, right? A guy we work with, like a lawyer here in Miami, and he's in a big building, 37 floors up, with his power jacket on. And I said to him, listen, Frank, you got to tell everybody now a case you lost. He said, I'm not doing that. I said, you have to. He goes, I've never told anyone this. I'm like, that's why you got to tell people. He goes, why would I tell people a story of me being weak? I said, because that's relatable. That's authentic. You already hit success. That's why you're working with me, and you want to go bigger, right? And he goes, yeah, I want to share my legacy and I want to do that. Great. So was growth like that? Was it win, 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 win? No. The moment you share that story, right? You don't have to share the nuts and bolts and like maybe the real dark secrets of the story, but share enough so people are like, oh my gosh, he's lost a case. I've lost a case. Now we connect. So I think with personal brand, the vulnerability, sharing enough so that people can feel like they can relate to you. You don't have to share the deepest, darkest secrets. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle with, like, well, I didn't sell drugs on the street. I didn't do this. This didn't happen to me. No one touched me. No one did. People think these crazy stories of that's how you connect. I tell people this. Have you ever had a bad business that's gone wrong? Great. Have you ever been through a bad breakup? Great. Have you ever lost an animal or lost someone close to you? Great. Have you ever done something bad immediately you knew after it was like bad and then you felt bad about it? Yeah, great. So share some of these like life stories. The moment you put it out there, you're going to see a different connection point. And that's authenticity. It's just, and consistency over time.
Yeah, I think this is a really great point. I had a video or a post or something in the last few months where, and I can't remember the details. I was having a crappy day, or I disclosed some type of nominal failure, and the response was incredible.
Yeah.
And people they DM'd me like, "Hey dude, thanks for sharing this." And I have mixed feelings about this because entrepreneurs, there is something crappy that happens to us every single day.
Right.
I own a fairly large service company, and I had one of the technicians get in an accident in Michigan today. And so for me, Jay, it's like, what's the balance, dude? Like, what's the mix of me showing successes versus showing failures and being vulnerable? Is it 80% positive, 20% vulnerability? What is that? How do we get to that sweet spot?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't look at it like that, because the thing with personal branding, man, and the thing with content creation is it's supposed to be evergreen. It's supposed to be ongoing. So if you're constantly okay of sharing things throughout your life, you never have to think, oh, today I already did this post yesterday. I can't, like, for me, that doesn't flow. And now and then the problem with that, now you're in analyzation mode. With content, it should be flowing, right? Because you're in this forever, right? You're always going to share things. So you may jump on your stories. You may not have to share exactly that case. You're like, hey, life as an entrepreneur guy sucks. Like, I'd love to know what I feel like every day or every few days something happens that we don't talk about. I had a problem with my staff this morning. What happened to you? And you have like a comment area on your stories. Now people feel like they can engage because people feel like be a place that they can share with someone else. So I don't think it's 80-20. I think it should just be like enough that you're not constantly seen as winning. Because it's not real then. It doesn't truly connect with the person deep down. Like, for example, for me, I've had people say, Jay, like, you're always like well put together, you're always this, you're always that. And then I'm like, if that comes up a little bit, I'll throw in some vulnerability. Because man, at the end of the day, I get it. I'm not going to post every day of all the failures. That doesn't make me feel good. I want to show my success. But I also know that's also not realistic as well. So when I do throw these things in, I do get a tremendous amount of engagement because it reminds people. It's the reality of it. So if I'm late in the office, which I usually am, I'll post at 11 o'clock at night and I'll get huge engagement the next day. Or if I have like something doesn't work well, the contract, like, hey, I shared a story recently, I got screwed over by someone, a business partner, bad. Like I got a tremendous amount of engagement with that, right? So I didn't go into the details of how much, who it was, but I was at a very vulnerable time. And I went, you know what, this is probably good to share because I'm doing it for the reason that I wish someone shared this with me when I first started. Because we see people we look up to and we never see them fold.
I think it's really impactful because sometimes when we have mentors, people that we look up to, we see the facade or we see just the constant success and we don't see the failures and the struggles. And then we think, oh, we're different.
Yeah.
So we can't live up to that.
Right.
And so, I mean, I love this idea. And I think I'm going to start incorporating it a little more than I have been because I always have a story of something that happened, issue with a business partner, a failure, whatever. I think something that's very interesting about you is that you've grown your YouTube channel. You're around 60 million views. You have 1 million plus followers on Instagram. And I mean, that type of traction, it's very admirable, but I think there's more to it than that, right? It's not just numbers. What has gone into the success that you've had in developing big numbers like that?
There are two responses, right? Just work hard and believe, which is the Hollywood answer. But the reality is consistency over time. YouTube took me 10 years, videos every week. It's exactly what everybody says. One day you're just rolling through and then one gets a spike and then you're like, keep going. And then one other gets a spike and it's over time. I tell this to a lot of people. Are you in this today or you're in this forever? And it changes your mindset on things, right? Because even for me, maybe even for you, if things don't work in a week, a month, 4 months, you're like, oh, I'm out. Man, it takes years. I know I have to be so careful of that too when it comes to like work. In my opinion, a lot of us, including me, don't spend a long enough time on a certain activity to know if it's actually working out. I had people come to me like, oh, I'm trying to do this, or I'm like, okay, how many sales calls have you done? Oh, 10. I'm like, come back to me when you do 1,000. Then we can talk about that. I don't think that people put enough runs on the board to actually see the result of the fruition, right? Because you look at most big superstars in your own eyes, they've done this task for most of their life. That's why they're masters. It's not been a 1 year. It's not been a 1 year gig. They've been working on it over and over and over and over and over again. And then as entrepreneurs, it's good for us to be reminded of that, because we have this tendency of like, how come I can't scale to $1 million or this number or this and like this? I'm like, well, hang on a second. What's the reality of this? Is that the truth? Or are we just telling ourselves that?
The cool thing is that entrepreneurs get that. They get that a lot of times Hollywood will like glamorize like certain celebrity CEOs or founders.
Right.
I love that saying that's like, yeah, I'm an overnight success, 10 years in the making or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's something that clicked. And I think that's true of business. One thing that trips up entrepreneurs is this idea of, we know that there's consistency. That is just a price that you pay to succeed in business. How do I know how much is required? For me, for example, I have 2 podcasts now. I've done hundreds and hundreds of episodes. I drop weekly, both podcasts. And it's like, how do I know if I should keep on track with something or if I need to pivot or go in a different direction? What are the things that make that determination for me or for the listener? What is it? Is that kind of going back to the why that you mentioned at the onset?
Yeah, because that's the only thing that's honest and raw. That's the only thing that we can actually like know the truth of, because like this podcast, right? Like do you do 200 episodes or do you do 1,000 episodes? Well, I don't know that. Maybe, but what happens if something changes in the game? Like maybe the way people listen to podcasts, or it isn't the thing anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, but are you already close to already getting traction? So it's like coming back to that honest reason, like what did you want to start this for? Right? I do agree though. I do believe though, if eventually you're just fed up with it, I don't think that's a great way to run something, because I did that with YouTube when I got to a point where I was just forcing it and I was just trying to do it for the views, and you just hate it. You're like, this is pointless here. So I would, for you, come back to that. Why am I really doing this? And what's the honest truth about it? I do think that you have to put more runs on the board than most, but I also think you have to figure out what's not working. If you've done 100 podcasts and it's not working, dude, maybe you have to change it up. Maybe something's not working. And I think that's another thing too to share. We're quick to blame the market or the blame this, but we're not quick to turn it back around on us. Dude, maybe it's us. Maybe we're not a good interviewer. Maybe we're not a good salesman. Maybe we're not. Let's fix us. Like, when was the last time we do this in Hollywood a lot? When I used to live in LA, they're called focus groups. And before it's a release party, right? When a song comes out, they'll bring your friends over, listen to it. A movie comes out, a focus group, they'll give honest reviews before they go take it to the real public, because they want to know the truth. And I remember someone saying this to me a long time ago. When was the last time you did a focus group on yourself? I was like, okay, that's powerful. Like, actually getting people to break down your business.
Yeah.
Like, and not being nice. Like, literally, like, that does not make sense. Why is that color there? I don't get it. But very few people, including me, I think I can take it more than most, but like, you got to be prepared for that, because you may find something out that you're not ready to find out.
For sure. Tell me about Ace of Spades, and tell me about all the things you're doing there to help people grow their personal brands.
Dude, at the end of the day, I realized I was speaking before COVID, right? So I was an entertainer, and then I worked on TV, then I was a speaker. And when the world stood still, I was like, what have I done really well for the last, 15 years in 30 countries? I was like, I've really been good at selling myself. I didn't know how to articulate it as a personal brand, but once I realized if you can get people to buy into you and they like you and they trust you, like, you can really do anything with them. You can take them anywhere whether that doesn't work, but if they like you, hey, I believe him, I trust him, I like her, I trust her. So I really help people who had a skill set of like, hey, entrepreneurs, let me get you in the media. Let me use the power of these connections that I've got to position you, because we all know these people. Like, most people aren't that unique. Like, I'll get to be honest, there's not that many people that are that unique. Like that, like really, like you make landing pages.
It's true.
Okay, look, listen, I think I'm a great publicist. I'm not the most unique publicist. Like, people like, oh, damn. You know what I mean? Like, there are very few people in the world and skill sets that it's like, I've never seen that before ever. So if that's the case, and we're all the same person and we're all good at what we do, what makes us different to get the opportunities? Well, it's people knowing us. It's getting the attention. It's being on TV. It's positioning ourselves. It's helping them with the podcast. It's being more known. So my job and the team's job is like, how do we take your skill set or talent and position you and package you and promote you? And the funny thing is, like, once you do a little bit of that, the opportunities tend to come a lot easier. I've seen it firsthand for myself. People will just throw things at you because they know you. If you have a somewhat element of fame, doesn't have to be a lot, just could be like, hey, man, I saw you on the podcast. I've seen you before. That's enough for people to give you that trust. That's what personal branding can do, because you're selling you're selling the product.
Yeah, I've heard it been said that in today's kind of world with social media and what's going on with our economy, that a personal brand is more valuable than the equivalent brand for a company.
I agree. Yeah, I really agree. Companies now like are realizing they've got to have human behind the brand. They've got to find some kind of face. Now, it's hard for Coca-Cola or Nike, but they're using characters, right? Remember the Verizon guy? That was a big thing. You know what he looks like. You may not look, but you know the guy. He's like that kind of standard white Caucasian male, like very like nerdy, right? That's the Verizon guy. But people are realizing people want to connect with people. Like, who cares? Like, I keep going back to this, but like, okay, what's the benefits? Alkaline, holds well, feels well. Or if it's a person behind it, every time I drink this, I feel amazing. Now it's like, oh, I want that. And that's part of it. That's why people use influencers and they use celebrities to endorse things. But people are smart now too, man. People know when people are getting paid to promote something. Hence why it's like, if people can get to know you through this messaging over and over and over again, like, this would really help you, man, with investors. If you can share with people the track record, so the first layer of like, he's trustworthy, he's had result, this is my story. Now you break into a little bit of how you've done that. Like, man, I'm sure not all of them made $1 million in the first year. I'm sure some of them sucked. I'm sure you've learned some things. Now you can teach other people who want to be like you, sound like you, or become you, and you show them the steps of how to do that. Hey, this is how I would start. This is how I would start a business today. Here are the things you must need. First thing, LLC. Second thing, get a good accountant. Third thing, get a good business plan. I'm just going off, right? But that alone with a piece of content, now people are like, he's the expert. I like him. He cares, and I want to buy into him. So that could be a move for you.
Love that. So Jay, somebody comes to you, they're like, hey, for whatever reason, I want to start working on my personal brand. Haven't done anything, no real exposure on social media. What are steps 1 through whatever? Where do we start?
Step 1, you need to have money. Yeah. Whole Foods don't take fist bumps and high fives, man. No, look, I tell people, first thing I tell them is like, why do you want to build a personal brand? Right. And then I find out, like, what do they expect by growing this? Let's say that they're being authentic with the true reasons of why they want to do it. The first thing we've got to do is we've got to get them over, which is the hardest thing, get them over the feeling of being on camera. Most people are scared of being on camera, man. They're scared of actually talking to the camera. Think about it. Public speaking is the number 1 fear in the world. Still today. It's never been beaten.
Yeah. Isn't it like something like people are more afraid of public speaking than death or something like that?
Yeah. No, look, the rule is there's a microphone with a stand and a pool of sharks, great white sharks swimming in blood. 500 people, and people would rather jump in there. That, to me, I still don't comprehend that. Like, I understand the feeling of being in front of a crowd. I can understand how you'd be scared. But knowing that the feeling of fear is better for you to just jump with the sharks and die right? Than sit there with the feeling of 500 people staring you down. So yeah, so I think the first part is this, right? First part of personal brand is like, what do we want to talk about? What's the end goal here, right? Second thing with the personal brand is getting them to be uncomfortable in front of camera, right? So getting them, hey, you're going to be making content. We're going to be doing this. We're going to be doing that, right? And the third thing, which is my biggest, they've got to be coachable. Like, have to be coachable. I call it the 3 C's. You got to be coachable, you got to be committed, and you got to have cash flow. But out of the cash flow, we can find the committed. That's just obvious. But if you're not listening to me, you can't. This isn't going to work, because I've got to tell you to do things that you've never done before. You're going to have to do an Instagram live every day to get over the fear of talking to a camera and not feeling stupid with one person. Guess what? If you can't deal with that, how are you going to deal when someone asks you a super hard question on a television show? You're going to freak out. You're going to cry. You're going to literally freeze. So if you can't be comfortable, Mr. Plastic Surgeon who's made his money and thought he doesn't, Mr. Entrepreneur who's got 50 businesses that make so much money, if you can't talk to the people every day and commit to me and doing this, why am I going to give you a TV show? Why am I going to give you that? That's how I am, man, because I know what's going to happen when it's going to happen. And everyone thinks they're super tough. Just wait until you get asked the hard question on TV with the lights and the journalist behind the camera. She's triggered by something from you, whatever that reason is, or the producer's in her ear and says, hit him with this question or jab him, and you fumble. That could be a hard one to fix.
For sure. Love it, man. Well, Jay, you know your stuff. That's for sure.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, it's been a real pleasure. Where can people reach out to you if they want to learn more about you, more about Ace of Spades, or whatever else you've got going on, man?
Yeah, and yeah, if anyone's listening and wants my help and support to position them and really give them the tools and the blueprint of how to do this the right way, you don't have to be someone you're not. I think that's the other big thing I wanted to say, Allan, over this time. Like, you don't need to be this character. You don't. Because everyone in the world, once again, if they'll connect with you 3 ways. One, they look like you, they sound like you, or they want to be you. Like, Allan, you will get white 35 to 50-year-old males, right? Because that's what you look like. I will get dark Indian, Ricky Martin looking stylish guy. I know what I bring to the table. But the point of the story is, when I've done content, I looked at my countries of YouTube. I got Persia, Tunisia, India, Sri Lanka, Dubai. So people are connected with me because I look like them. Sure. You don't have to be someone you're not. You just have to be authentic. And people, man, are smart. They feel it. They know when they're being played. They're like, somebody doesn't feel good about this girl or guy. They may not say it, but they feel it here. So yeah, if you're out there and you want to put a plan together, you want to get on TV, want to get in the media, aceofspadesagency.com. aceofspadesagency.com.
Love it. We'll add that to the show notes. Jay, this has been a real pleasure, man. I honestly feel like I've learned a lot, and it's definitely going to help with the trajectory that I'm on, the path that I'm on. So I appreciate you, man. Wish you nothing but the best in the future.
Thanks, guys.
If you have enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a rating. And for daily inspiration and business tips, follow Allan on Instagram. Until next time, remember, we build the future one entrepreneur at a time.